Hey guys, what do you think is the best clone of Jean-Paul Gaultier's Le Male Elixir that you can currently get? Well, in today's updated episode of A Fragrance Battle, I'm going to tell you my opinion. But before I do, you know that I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman, and it's time for your daily dose of some fragrance content. Those of you who have been following me at least for a while know that a few months ago I did an episode of Fragrance Battle where I compared the what then was available clone-wise of Jean-Paul Gaultier's Le Male Elixir. But since those few months ago a few new clones of Le Male Elixir got released, I got my hands on a few of those and I can definitely tell you that there's a new sheriff in town. But before I talk about everything else, first of all let me present to you what are the fragrances that are going to be part of today's episode of Fragrance Battle. On one hand we have Virilis from Paris Corner, then we have Rayhaan Elixir, then we also have Latafa the Kingdom. Those were the three fragrances that were originally part in the first episode of Le Male Elixir's Fragrance Battle. But since then I've added three more fragrances, three more clones of Le Male Elixir. One of them comes from a brand called Nassim and it's a water-based fragrance, which is an interesting fact about this one. And then the other two are Club de Nuit Lionheart from Armaf and Urban Man Elixir from Fragrance World. Let's talk about the scent. Before I started preparing for this video, I sprayed all 6 of them on paper strips along with the original fragrance, so I can talk about the opening, and right now I can check out the dry down of all 6 fragrances. And I'm going to start in the order of how far they feel from the original fragrance and moving my way up until I get to the fragrance that I think nails the opening and the dry down the best. Now the fragrance that feels the furthest away out of all 6 will be the one from Nassim, which is called French Vanilla, and this again is a water-based fragrance and it's an interesting scent that doesn't feel like a clone of Le Male Elixir. This one feels more like something that has been somewhat inspired by. It carries some of the, those signature notes that you'll find in Le Male Elixir, the vanillic sweetness, a bit of ambery sweetness, maybe a hint of tobacco, but not much else. This lacks the freshness, this lacks the lavender note from the original fragrance, this lacks the strength of the tobacco note. This feels a little bit soapy, especially on its dry down, and feels more simplistic because I think this relies heavily on the note of vanilla to create its scent profile, and that's why I think this feels the furthest away out of all 6. The next one is going to be Virilis from Paris Corner. This is again an interesting fragrance that doesn't feel like a straight up clone, feels more like something that has been inspired by. This one has a lot more fruity sweetness. I think there's a pineapple note that has been used in this fragrance. It also has more of an ambery sweetness rather than the vanillic and honey sweetness from the original fragrance. Maybe it has a hint of tobacco, but just the way that the ambery sweetness and that pineapple note, which doesn't feel fresh, it feels more on the sweeter side. That combination of the pineapple and the ambery note create an interesting sweet note that feels quite different to a Le Male Elixir. Still, if you are familiar with the original fragrance, you'll immediately recognize what has been the inspiration for Virilis, but this definitely doesn't feel super close scent-wise to the original scent. And now let's move on to the 4 fragrances that actually feel quite a lot closer to the original fragrance. They feel more like clones rather than inspirations. And I'm going to start with Rayhaan Elixir. Now this definitely is a lot closer to Le Male Elixir, but it has its own differences compared to the original fragrance. This feels a little bit more spicy in the opening, feels a little bit less sweet, feels a little bit less aromatic than a Le Male Elixir. Lacks a bit of the freshness and maybe feels a little bit more earthy, especially on its dry down, but it has the tobacco note, it has the honey note, it has the vanilla note, still it has the lavender and the mint, and definitely this one feels close, but not as close as the other 3. The next one, closeness wise, in my opinion, is Latafa the Kingdom. This still again doesn't feel like a one-to-one clone in the opening. This compared to Rayhaan Elixir and to the original fragrance, this actually feels fresher. It feels a little bit more aromatic. This has a little bit more emphasis on the lavender note. You still find the sweetness, the tobacco and everything else, but definitely, this This just feels a little bit less sweet, feels a little bit fresher, like it has a more lavender and slightly less tobacco, but definitely this feels quite close to Le Male Elixir. And the other two, here the differences are very small between Urban Man Elixir from Fragrance World and Club de Nuit Lionheart from Armaf. Those, in my opinion, are the two that do the best job when it comes to how close they are to the original fragrance. Uh, Urban Man Elixir still has a few differences. It feels a little bit more vanillic, a little bit less spicy and slightly less aromatic than the original fragrance. But you know, those differences are only noticeable up close. In the air, this actually smells very similar to Le Male Elixir, and maybe even has a little bit less tobacco on its dry down compared to Le Male Elixir, but it smells damn near close to the original fragrance. And the one that actually feels the closest to my nose is Club de Nuit Lionheart from, from Armaf. Again, it has its small differences. This one feels a little bit more spicy, slightly less aromatic than Le Male Elixir, maybe a little bit darker than Le Male Elixir, but definitely this one is doing the best job when it comes to replicating the opening of the original fragrance. On the dry down, the reality is that pretty much all of them actually get closer, but still I would rank them in the same way. Nassim feels the furthest away. Virilis is the next one. Then we have Rayhaan Elixir. Then we have Latafa the Kingdom. And then we have Urban Man Elixir and Club de Nuit Lionheart, which both feel super close. But if I have to pick up a winner when it comes to actually how close or how good of a job they're doing when it comes to copying the original scent, for me the winner will be Club de Nuit Lionheart. The next important thing, of course, is the performance. And here I'm happy to say that apart from the one from Nassim, everything else is actually pretty decent or quite strong when it comes to performance. If I have to be a little bit more specific or quote some figures, for me the Nassim fragrance has been giving me about 5 to 6 hours of total longevity, so more on the moderate side, and the same can be said about the projection. It's a little bit weaker, but I think that's down to the fact that this is a water-based fragrance. From everything else, the next one will be Rayhaan Elixir, which has been giving me around about 7 hours of performance with decent projection in the first about hour and a half. The next one, performance-wise, probably the next two, which are pretty equal, will be Virilis and the Kingdom, which have been giving me about 8 hours of performance with quite good projection in the first about hour and a half. Maybe Virilis is slightly better projecting than the Latafa one, but definitely the total longevity is pretty equal between them. And then we have to move on to Urban Man Elixir and Club de Nuit Lionheart, which again I think are the winners in this category as well, because both of them have been easily lasting 8 to 9 hours, maybe even over that, on my skin in particular. So they are the best performing fragrances that are featured in today's episode of A Fragrance Battle. And at the end, let's just sum up the results of today's episode of A Fragrance Battle. The closest clone fragrance to Le Male Elixir that you can currently get, at least from my experience, is Club de Nuit Lionheart from Armaf, and it's the winner in today's episode of A Fragrance Battle. When it comes to the scent, the second place will be for Urban Man Elixir from Fragrance World. In third place, I'm going to rank Latafa the Kingdom. In fourth place, Rayhaan Elixir. In fifth place, Virilis. And in sixth place, the Nassim one, French Vanilla. When it comes to the performance, again, the ranking is pretty much the same. Club de Nuit Lionheart is the strongest performing fragrance, along with Urban Man Elixir. Maybe Club de Nuit Lionheart is slightly better projecting, but both of them are very good, very strong fragrances. And again, the ranking is almost the same. In third position will be Latafa the Kingdom and Virilis. Then in fifth position will be Rayhaan Elixir, and in sixth position Nassim. And if I have to choose a personal winner, it will be pretty hard, but for me, probably right now, Urban Man Elixir and Club de Nuit Lionheart are equally enjoyable personally. So, it makes sense that Club de Nuit Lionheart is the winner in today's episode of Fragrance Battle, with Urban Man Elixir coming in a close second place. But I just wanted to add something else at the end of the video. If you already have some of the good clones like Rayhaan Elixir or Latafa the Kingdom or Urban Man Elixir, you don't really need to spend the money on anything else, to be honest. you're pretty much all set, because again we're talking about very small differences between those 4 fragrances in here. You don't really need to spend the money buying some more clones of the same original fragrance unless you're a collector like me, or you really like that scent profile. If you're just a normal user or someone that likes the original scent, and let's say for example you already have Lattafa the Kingdom, you don't really need to buy Club de Nuit Lionheart or Urban Man Elixir. And with this, I'm going to end today's episode of A Fragrance Battle. I hope that you found this video interesting to watch or helpful. If you did, give it a like. And I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye-bye. An updated, or in other words, a mega fragrance battle for the best clone of Jean Paul Gaultier's Ultra Male. Hello guys, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. It's time for your daily dose of some fragrance content, and it's time to revisit another one of those fragrance battles that I did a while ago, because there have been some new contenders for the best clone of Jean Paul Gaultier's Ultra Male. So today I'm going to update my fragrance battle for the best Ultra Male clone. It's hard to believe that Ultra Male was actually released 10 years ago, I think in 2015, so already 10 years have passed since this fragrance was created and released. It's a great scent that's very sweet, that feels kind of aromatic, has some freshness, it's very playful. It's a very youthful scent that to this day I think remains a great seller for the brand of Jean Paul Gaultier. And of course, being such a likable and fragrance with high compliment factor, it's no wonder that it's been cloned quite a few times already. Now, up until about a year ago, I thought that we've already seen the best of the clones of Ultra Male, but in the past few months especially, some new clones have spawned, and actually they're pretty good. So I decided that it's time to revisit this fragrance battle and update you with what I believe currently are the best clones of Ultra Male. I really like this fragrance, keep that in mind. And I have a few bottles of Ultra Male. This is one of those that I'm showing you today. Now, I'm going to start with what's the cheapest clone that I have in my collection of Ultra Male. It comes from a brand that's called, I don't know, Nike, I don't know exactly how to pronounce this brand. But this is a very cheap, the cheapest clone of Ultra Male that I have in my collection. And actually, I've had this for a very long time. And it's also not only the cheapest, but it's probably the most simplistic clone of Ultra Male that I have and that you can try. It won't get super close scent-wise to the original fragrance, although it will give you sort of a general idea of what to expect out of the original scent. It lacks, of course, the quality, it lacks the performance, it lacks the sparkly nature of the original fragrance, a bit of that freshness. This is like a more simplified, sweeter version of and more airy version of Ultra Male. But nonetheless, again, I think this will give you, if you have never smelled, if you have never tried Ultra Male, this will give you sort of a general idea how the original one smells. I think to this day this is very cheap and can usually be found for 10 euros or less. So it's an absolute bargain. Again, it won't get you super close to the original fragrance, but it will give you an idea of how it actually smells. The next one that I'm going to show you in today's video comes from the brand of Lattafa, and it's called Rams Silver. And again, just like the one from Nike or whatever is the name of this brand, this is again a more simplistic take on the Ultra Male scent profile. Although this one feels closer to the original fragrance than this one. But it's still more of a simplified scent. It lacks a bit of that airness, it lacks a bit of that aromatic nature of the original fragrance. This is more like a vanillic take on the scent of Ultra Male. Basically, this concentrates, on the vanillic side of Ultra Male. Still, though, a very nice, very respectable fragrance on its own, actually. And I've been always been sort of had a soft spot for Rams Silver from the brand of Lattafa. Here, quality is better. Also, the performance is way better. This actually, especially after some maceration, this turned out to be a very decently performing scent, easily giving me 7, 8, maybe even over the 8-hour mark when it comes to performance. So it's a nice, and to this day the other good thing about Ram Silver is that to this day remains very affordable. I think usually you can find this for less than 20 euros, so around about the $20 mark, even less in the US. So this is again a very inexpensive way. If you're not familiar with the way that the original fragrance smells, this is a very inexpensive way to actually sort of get an idea of how Ultra Male smells. But it will get you closer to the original one than this. The next one that I've included in today's video comes from the brand of Rue Broca, and it's called Touché, and this is one of those lesser known clones of Ultra Male. Keep in mind that Rue Broca is a sub-brand of Afnan, and you know, I'm going to show you an actual Afnan fragrance a little bit later on in the video. This is again another those one of very inexpensive clones of Ultra Male that for some reason does not get much attention. But I think this one, for example, smells even closer to the original fragrance than the previous two that I showed you. This feels a little bit more fresher, a little bit more aromatic, and in that way I think it actually gets closer to Ultra Male. With very decent quality and very decent performance. There's a bit of harshness in the opening, a bit of a sort of an alcohol blast when you first spray this one for the first few seconds, but after that this actually settles down to a nice good interpretation of the scent profile of Ultra Male. Again, decent quality performances. I would say, at least in my experience on my skin, this is slightly less of a performer compared to Ram Silver, but I think overall this has a slightly better quality and it also gets slightly closer to the original scent. It's, I think, a little bit more expensive, like an euro or two more expensive than Ram Silver, and it's another one of those very inexpensive options for those of you who want to experience something similar to Ultra Male. The next one that I've included in today's video comes from the brand of Armaf, and it's called Odyssey Spectra, and this is one of those you know, very new clones of Ultra Male that I talked about in the beginning of the video, that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. When I first got my nose on this one, this was the time when I thought that we were already done with getting new Ultra Male clones, and then this one popped up. I tried it and I immediately recognized what this is trying to be. But this is a very interesting scent because this is not only similar to Ultra Male, but it's also similar to another fragrance that I'm going to show you in a minute. This feels similar to Ultra Male in the fact that it has the sweetness, it has the aromatic nature, it has a bit of that freshness, but the opening here doesn't use the note of pear, just unlike what you get with the original, which uses that note. This actually uses the note of apple, which is a sweet but at the same time slightly fresh apple note. So this one in the opening feels a little bit brighter than Ultra Male, slightly less sweet, and then on the dry down this develops a little bit of a different scent profile. This becomes a little bit more spicy, a little bit more cinnamony than Ultra Male. It becomes a little bit more woody, and also this has the note of tobacco on the dry down, which the original fragrance doesn't have, and just feels a little bit more mature, slightly denser, and you know, more serious on its dry down. But in the air, of course, you'll immediately recognize that this has been inspired by Ultra Male. In here, the quality is the best one out of all four that I've showed you so far. This also is the best performer. Definitely lasts for a very good amount of time. Also projects really nicely. The next one that I'm going to show you is probably the most famous clone of Ultra Male. It comes from the brand of Afnan. It's called 9 PM. As I said, there's going to be an actual Afnan fragrance a little bit later on, and this is it. And I'm showing you this one next because this is not a straight up clone of Ultra Male. This has a bit of a twist, and actually Armaf Odyssey Spectra and 9 PM from Afnan actually smell pretty similar in the opening, because Afnan's fragrance, Armaf's fragrance, excuse me, actually feels closer to 9 PM in the opening compared to Ultra Male. On the dry down, both of them, you know, get close to Ultra Male, but this is down to the fact that 9 PM, both 9 PM and Armaf Odyssey Spectra use that apple note instead of the pear note of the original fragrance. Other than that, 9 PM again is the most famous clone of Ultra Male. It has superb quality. At least my few bottles of 9 PM, which were bought a few years ago, all of them are really nice. They're superb performers. They last for a very good time, project really nicely. The next one that I'm going to show you comes from the brand of Maison Alhambra, and it's called Glacier Ultra. And it's a relatively new clone of Ultra Male, although it's not the newest one. But this is one of those, another one of those clones of Ultra Male that, in my opinion, doesn't get the needed credit or enough attention, because I think Maison Alhambra have actually done a good job with Glacier Ultra, smelling very similar to the original fragrance, almost completely getting right the opening, completely getting right the dry down. When it comes to closeness to the original scent, this actually is one of the best clones of Ultra Male that you can get. Also at the same time, it offers good quality, it offers good performance, good projection, and all that for an affordable price. Again, probably the only problem that I have with this fragrance is the tacky bottle design. I really don't like the Maison Alhambra bottle design of their clones of the Le Male line. Other than that though, this is a very nice fragrance. The next one that I've included in today's video comes from the brand of Albatania, and it's called Attar Al Weasel, and this, in my opinion, is probably the clone of Ultra Male that I have, that I've tried, that gets the closest to the original scent, scent-wise. Again, it's one of those slightly, you can call them hidden gems, because this fragrance doesn't get too much love or too much talked about, but I think Albatania have done a fantastic job copying the original fragrance scent-wise. Almost identical in the opening, almost identical on the dry down, while at the same time offering a very good quality and very respectable performance as well. Not as good as the original as some of the other fragrances in here, but still very nice fragrance on its own, and I really do think this deserves a little bit more attention, and especially around our markets, this is one of the cheapest clones of Ultra Male that you can get. So this is a real nice gem in my opinion. And the last fragrance that I've included in today's video is the latest clone of Ultra Male that I added to my collection. It comes from the brand of Rayhaan, and it's called Lion. And in a way, this feels like a mix between, let's say, Ultra Male, 9 p.m., Armaf Odyssey Spectra, while at the same time doing a little bit of its own thing. The opening is very similar to the original fragrance, lacks maybe a hint of the sparkleness of Ultra Male, but other than that, getting the opening very right. While on the dry down, this actually goes into a little bit of a different direction. It becomes a little bit more woody, it becomes a little bit more powdery, it also becomes a little bit soapy, but it has superb quality. And the best thing out of all is that this offers absolutely fantastic performance. It's a beast mode performing clone of Ultra Male, while at the same time offering really nice quality, and also offering a very low price, very affordable price. And now let's do some rankings. Let's do them live. Let's do some rankings. The first ranking that I'm going to show you is how close they get to the original fragrance in my opinion, and which are the best clones scent-wise to the original fragrance. Now the worst ones, the ones that will only give you sort of a general idea how the original fragrance smells, will be the one from Nike and the one from Lattafa. Again, I'm not going to bash on Ram Silva. I really like it because it has decent quality, good performance, and very low price, but it's more on the simplistic side. The closest ones that to the original scent, at least, will be, in my opinion, will be Albatania Attar Al Weasel, Glacier Ultra, and as far as the opening goes, also Rayhaan Lion. 9 p.m. and Odyssey Spectra, they do a little bit of their own thing, while in the air smelling similar, they feel a little bit fresher, a little bit brighter, at least in the opening. So this is the ranking. The best ones when it comes to how close they are Albatania Attar Al Weasel, Glacier Ultra from Maison Alhambra, and Rayhaan Lion. Next one, let's talk about how they perform actually. So again, for me, the performance will be something like this. This again is the weakest performing scent, along with this one, Rue Broca Touche. When that's on the one hand, that's the weakest one. So when it comes to the strongest ones, for me, the ranking will be something like this. Rayhaan Lion, 9 p.m. From Afnan, along with Armaf Odyssey Spectra, and then these two. Now, for me, total longevity on skin when it comes to Rayhaan Lion and 9 p.m. has been about the same, but I think Rayhaan Lion actually is projecting a little bit better compared to 9 p.m. So that's why I think Rayhaan Lion, at least in my experience, is the best performing clone of Ultra Male that I have in my collection. And at the end, I'm going to give you sort of a personal ranking, the way that I like them, from my most favorite to my least favorite. 9 p.m. forever will remain in my heart because this was one of the very first clone fragrances that I ever added to my collection, so that's probably still remains to this day my most favorite clone of Ultra Male. But Rayhaan line actually joins sort of on joint first place when it comes to my current most favorite clone of Ultra Male. Then the ranking will be something like this. Sort of on joint second position will be Armaf Odyssey Spectra along with Attar Al Weasel from Al Watania, then Glacier Ultra from Maison Alhambra, then Rams Silver from Lattafa, Touche, and Nike. So guys, in today's updated episode of a Fragrance Battle, or in other words Mega Fragrance Battle, I showed you what in my opinion are the best clones of Jean Paul Gaultier's Ultra Male. I hope that you found this video interesting to watch. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye-bye.
Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. It's time for your daily dose of some fragrance content, and it's also time for the last episode of a Fragrance Battle for 2024, and it's one that you've been asking for in the past few weeks. Today I'm going to compare and battle out Liquid Brune from French Avenue, Art of Nature 2 from Lattafa, and Al Dirham Special Edition from Art Al Zafran, and I'm going to tell you which in my opinion is the best clone of Parfums de Marly's Altair. Now I know that some people will comment down below the video that there are other clones of Altair. I know that Armaf have one, but I currently don't own that. I also know for a fact that my Parfums will release a clone of Altair as well. But these are the three ones currently that I have, and I think that these are the three ones that are widely available. So that's why I'm comparing these three. Whenever I get my hands on more Altair clones, I will, update this fragrance battle, including the new additions if I have them, if I get them. Now, first of all, I'm going to start with the packaging and the presentation. I'm not going to go over the packaging on all three of them. I'm just going to show you the packaging of one. In this case, it's Art Al Zafran's Al Dirham Special Edition, because of an interesting fact. You get an included pocket size, 20 milliliter pocket size bottle in the whole presentation, in the box of this fragrance. So, in other words, when you buy Al Dirham Special Edition, you're actually getting 120 milliliters of fragrance oil or fragrance included into the price. Other than that, all three have the same bottle size, 100 milliliters. All three come nicely packaged. Now the bottle design is something of a personal preference. Also, one other thing that I want to mention out when it comes to the packaging, the presentation, and the quality is the fact that the weakest sprayer out of all three belongs to Art of Nature 2. It's a bit on the inconsistent side, and I would have liked if Lattafa have went with a better sprayer. Now let's talk about the more important stuff, mainly about the scent of all three fragrances that are included in today's video. Now all three of them, of course, are clones of Parfums de Marly's Altair, and the original fragrance is a very likable vanilla-based scent that relies on a lot of vanilla, a lot of benzoin, a lot of cinnamon spiciness. You get a bit of a floral touch from an orange blossom note, some oods on the dry down, and lots of ambroxan as well, maybe some ambery sweetness. And all three clones actually scent-wise are very similar to the original one, but they have a few minor differences. The one that feels the furthest away compared to the original one is Art Al Zafran's Al Dirham Special Edition. Now in the air this smells very similar to Altair and to the other two, but at the same time up close you'll find a few differences. Mainly the fact that this is not as sweet as the original fragrance. This doesn't have the strength of the vanilla note that the original one has. This also lacks a bit of the strength of the cinnamon note compared to the original one. This feels a little bit more fruity sweet. It has a green apple note in here that's adds sweetness, but it's not as sweet as the vanillic sweetness that you get out of the original one. This also of course has a vanilla note, but it's not as strong. It feels a little bit more airy, feels a little bit more spicy. This relies on some cardamom spiciness instead of solely relying on the cinnamon spiciness like the original fragrance. And also this feels a little bit greener. There are some green aspects to Alderham Special Edition. In the air smells very similar to Altair, but up close it's not as sweet, not as spicy, and definitely feels a little bit more airy and a little bit greener. When it comes to Art of Nature 2 from Lattafa, this one gets closer to the original scent, but again has a few minor differences. This again lacks a bit of the strength of the cinnamon note, this lacks a bit of the strength of the vanilla note. This again has a green apple note which adds some fruity sweetness, which is stronger than the one that you get out of Alderham Special Edition. It's a sweeter fragrance, but still feels a little bit less sweet and less spicy compared to Altair. But in the air, this smells even closer to Altair compared to Alderham Special Edition. And all around, this is has slightly higher quality and just smells slightly better and closer to the original one. And then, if we have to talk about Liquid Broom, this in my opinion is the one that gets closest to the original one. This has almost the same amount of cinnamon spiciness, also almost the same amount of vanillic sweetness, just like the original fragrance, and especially in the opening, this is the closest one out of all three by far. On the dry down, all three of them get very close to the original one, but still Liquid Broom feels just being the closest one, with Art of Nature 2 from Lattafa coming in a very close second place, and the third place is reserved for Alderham Special Edition. When it comes to performance, it's pretty much the same ranking. Liquid Broom is the best performing fragrance out of the bunch. This is, especially after some maceration, this is pretty beastly when it comes to performance. This easily gives me 9 to 10 hours of performance. On skin, on clothes, it will last for a few days actually. Projects strongly, it projects the best out of all three. And this is, in my opinion, by quite some margin, the best performing scent out of all three. In second place will be Art of Nature 2. This one has been giving me about 8 to 9 hours of performance, so about an hour and a half less compared to Liquid Broom. Also projects a little bit less compared to Liquid Broom. It will project nicely for about an hour and a half up to 2 hours. On clothes, this also will stay to the next day, but definitely it's not as strong as Liquid Broom. And in third position, performance wise, it will be Alderham Special Edition. This one has been giving me about 7.5 to 8 hours of performance, with pretty much the same amount of projection that I get out of Art of Nature 2, but all around this is the least performing fragrance, though at the same time this is still a very good performer. Price wise, the most expensive one, at least for me at the time that I bought them, was Art of Nature 2. I personally paid about 56-57 euros, which will translate into maybe something like $65 to get it. Now this was basically its initial release. Probably in a few months time the prices on Art of Nature 2 will start to drop a little bit, but currently this was the most expensive fragrance out of the bunch. The next one was Liquid Broom for me. I personally paid about 50 euros to get it, which is still a little bit more onto the expensive side. That will translate to something like $60. I know that there's been a lot of hype about Liquid Broom, and probably that's what is keeping the prices of this one quite high, but still it's at least for me it was a little bit less expensive, a little bit cheaper compared to Art of Nature 2. And the cheapest one out of the bunch for me personally was Alderham Special Edition. I bought it off Nutino's website when they were running a sale, and I got it for less than 30 euros. So price wise that will translate into something like $35, let's say something around that mark. I paid about 27-28 euros, which makes it the best deal and the cheapest fragrance out of the bunch. And at the end, a few final words and at least my personal final result in today's episode of a fragrance battle. If you're looking for the best clone scent-wise that will get you closest to the original fragrance with the strongest performance, that will be Liquid Broom from French Avenue. Hands down, at the moment, from what I've tried out of all these three, this is the best clone of Altair. It has superb quality, it smells very similar to the original fragrance, and it's a beast of a performer. But it's a little bit more expensive. If you can swallow up that price of 50 euros or around about $60, then and if you can find this one, because this often sells out quite quickly, But again, if you're after the best clone, if you don't mind the 50 euros or $60 price tag, and if you can find this one, then I think this is the best option. This is the best choice for an Altair clone. If you want to experience the Altair experience for the least amount of money, and if you can find you know, Alderham Special Edition from Art Alzafran on your markets, then this fragrance also deserves some attention. In my opinion, it deserves to be checked out. It's the cheapest clone of Altair that I've seen, at least for the moment. It costs about half the price of Liquid Brune, and you also get 120 milliliters included into those amount of money that you need to pay for Alderham Special Edition. It smells pretty similar to Altair, especially in the air. It still offers good performance, not as good as the other two, but still very respectable. And again, the best thing is that this pretty much costs half the price of Liquid Brune. So this will probably come in second position in today's fragrance battle because of all those things. In third and last position for me, it will be Art of Nature 2. Not that it's a bad fragrance on its own, it's a good clone of Altair, slightly different, slightly more fruity, slightly less spicy, but still having very nice quality, very respectable performance, very good performance. But for me personally, the biggest problem with this fragrance is that it currently is the most expensive out of all three, and for that amount of money I would have expected it to be the best clone, not the second best clone. So if I have to rank them, I would say Liquid Brune in first position because of the quality and the performance, Alderham Special Edition in second place because again of the respectable quality and performance and because of its price tag, and Art of Nature 2 in last place because it's the most expensive clone. And so guys, in today's last episode of a fragrance battle for 2024, I compared and battled out three clones of Parfums de Marly's Altair: Liquid Brune from French Avenue, Art of Nature 2 from Lattafa, and Alderham Special Edition from Art Alzafran. I hope that you found this video interesting or helpful. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye. Angels Share clones and alternatives compared in one video. Hello friends, I'm George, the nice medic gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. It's time for your daily dose of some fragrance content, and today's video, the video that I've prepared today, won't be exactly a fragrance battle, but it will be a comparison between 10 alternatives and clones of one very famous fragrance that turned out to be very popular clone fragrance. That fragrance is called Kilian Angels Share. Now, again, this won't be exactly a fragrance battle. I'm going to show you the clones and alternatives, and also at the end of the video I'm going to tell you which ones are my favorite ones, which one gets the closest to the original fragrance in my opinion, which one have the highest quality and the best performance. And the first few fragrances that I'm going to talk about won't be direct clones to Angels Share, but rather the alternatives. And let's start with the one fragrance that probably sparked all that interest, cloning interest of Angels Share. It comes from the brand of Lattafa, and it's called Hamra. This is the OG Hamra. Unfortunately, that metal part up front here has fallen off. I have to glue it back on. I'm sorry about this, but you know, that's a little bit of an insight about the quality when it comes to packaging and detailing. But the OG Hamra is probably the first fragrance that came out and that smelled very similar to Angels Share, and the one that actually sparkled all the interest when it comes to clones of Angels Share. Although this is not a clone of Angels Share, this is rather a clone of Sava from Giza, but it smells quite similar to Angels Share. Basically what you get here is you know, Angels Share's DNA, but minus the strong boozy note, the strong cognac note of the original fragrance from Kilians. This one maybe has a hint of booziness, but it's not the main note in the opening or in the fragrance itself, unlike Angels Share. Other than that, it has this very similar scent profile that relies on a lot of sweet notes, some spices, some oats. You get vanillic sweetness, you get ambery sweetness, you get dates, you get praline. It's a very sweet fragrance that when it came out basically became instantly super popular, one of the most popular fragrances from Lattafa, and to this day remains one of their best sellers. It's a little bit more expensive, but the scent itself has really nice quality, superb performance and projection, and also perfectly unisex. So it's a great fragrance, but again, this is not a straight up clone of Angels Share. This is more like an alternative, and this is the one that actually started everything in my opinion. Let's move on to another one of those alternatives for Angels Share, and it's the flanker to the OG Hamra, which is called Hamra Hawa. This is very similar to the OG Hamra, but this one has an added note of coffee, which to my nose makes it even more intense, especially in the opening, even stronger projecting in my experience. Other than that, it's super similar to the original Hamra. Longevity wise, they're very similar, but in my experience, Hawa has been a little bit stronger in the opening thanks to that coffee note, and also actually makes the whole scent profile a little bit more interesting in my opinion, because it's not only down to the sweetness, you also get an interesting coffee note. Again, superb offering from Lattafa, but this one doesn't seem to get as much attention as the OG Hamra. But to be honest, actually I prefer Hawa over Hamra. The next one comes from the brand of French Avenue, and it's called Raw Blend Nero. And again, this is very similar to Sava from Giza and very similar to OG Hamra. But what Fragrance World have done with the scent is making it even stronger, even sweeter, even more intense, and pretty much making it a beast of a performer. Very similar to the OG Hamra, but just more intense and just longer lasting, stronger projecting. Again, a pretty beastie fragrance. Quality is pretty much on par with the OG Hamra. The scent is pretty much almost exactly the same, but you get better performance, and for that this is a great option, great alternative of Angel Share, but not a straight up clone. But it's a great fragrance actually on its own. So this is the next alternative, and the fourth alternative that I'm going to give you is one lesser known alternative. It comes from the brand of Al Wataniya, and it's called Hayat. Now this is like a cheaper version of the OG Hamra and Sava from Giza. Basically, again, very similar scent profile, but just slightly lighter, slightly less sweet and less performing version of Hamra. But on its own, it's actually a nice fragrance. Performance-wise, still pretty good. I've been easily getting 8 hours of performance out of it. And because it's slightly lighter, in my opinion, this is a little bit more feminine leaning compared to the OG Hamra and to Raw Blend Nero and Hamra Hawa. But on its own, again, another very good option for those of you who are looking for something done in a similar style to Sava, to the OG Hamra, and to Angel Share as well. And the best thing is that this is very inexpensive. This costs about half the price of Hamra, so it's a great option for those of you who want to experience this scent profile, but for the least amount of money. Okay, we're done with the alternatives. Now let's move on to a category that will contain two fragrances, and they feel somewhere in between. They feel somewhere in between the OG Angel Share, and they feel somewhere in between Lattafa Hamra, because they actually have a slightly stronger boozy note in them, but still not as strong as the original one. The first such fragrance is from Zimaya, and it's called Sharaf Blend, and this fragrance is to this day, just like the OG Hamra, remains a very popular choice, and actually it's a very good fragrance, and I've been enjoying this one since the first day that I got it. It has slightly stronger boozy note compared to Hamra, not as strong as you get with Angel Share. This feels a little bit more spicy as well, but it offers great quality. It's slightly closer to Angel Share than Hamra and the other ones that I've started with this video. It offers great performance, pretty beastly, strong projection, very nice quality, very good presentation, very impressive looking presentation, and all that for a very affordable price. And to this day, this probably remains the most popular fragrance from the brand of Zimaya, and it's a great choice for those of you who are looking for an alternative or a clone of Angel Share. The other one is a recent release from the brand of Paris Corner, which also had to do sort of an Angel Share clone. It's part of the Moj line, and it's called Cognac Blaze, and this one feels like a mix of Hamra Hawa, because it has a strong coffee note, and also Angel Share, because it has quite a bit of a booziness as well. Again, not as boozy as the original fragrance, but still has quite a strong boozy note. Also has stronger coffee note than Hawa itself, and it's been a very interesting and very sort of a surprisingly good fragrance from the brand of Paris Corner. I've been enjoying this one quite a lot because it has very nice quality. It's a real sleeper, and just like Hayat from Al Wataniya, doesn't get enough recognition, and the recognition that it actually deserves. Quality is superb, again, very nice presentation, very good performance, maybe slightly less compared to Sharaf Blend and Hamra and Raw Blend Nero, but still very, very strong, about 89 hours, nice projection and a very affordable price. All around, I think this is a sleeper and it's a very good alternative for Angels Share. And now let's move on to the actual straight up clones of Angels Share. There are a total of 4 that I'm going to show you. The first one actually comes from the brand of Fragrance World again, and it's called Cocktail Intense. This was, I think, their first take at an Angels Share clone. Now, this is like a slightly more mellow, slightly softer version of Angels Share because it has a cognac note, but it's toned down a little bit compared to the original fragrance. Also, it's not super strong when it comes to performance, although it's a very decently performing fragrance, and to this day remains a great cheap, inexpensive options for those of you who are looking for an Angels Share clone. But it doesn't get super close to the original, again, mainly because of the slightly toned down cognac note. Still though, a very nice, very pleasant fragrance, perfectly unisex, just like pretty much anything else featured in today's video. Performance wise, you're looking at probably around 7 to 8 hours of performance, moderate projection, but the best thing out of all is that this is very inexpensive. To this day, I think it costs somewhere around about 25 euros, $25, and it's a very good inexpensive option. But probably out of the clones that I'm going to show you, feels the furthest away along with another one that I'm going to show you just now, which comes from the brand of Arabiat Prestige, and it's called Aris Intense. Just like Cocktail Intense, this one has a boozy note, but not nearly as strong as you get with the original fragrance. But the other things that you get in here, you get almost the same amount of sweetness as the original fragrance, maybe feeling a little bit more spicy in the opening, but you also get superb quality here. The presentation is a lot better compared to Cocktail Intense. You get pressurized sprayer, you get stronger performance, longer lasting fragrance that projects better, and it's just a higher quality alternative for Cocktail Intense. And I've been really impressed with the brand of Arabiat Prestige because they seem to have some real bangers, and Aris Intense is probably one of those great bangers from that brand. The only problem with this fragrance is that it's a little bit more expensive, and I think this is the most expensive fragrance in today's video. Usually costs somewhere between 50 to 60 euros, which makes it double the price of some of the options that I already gave you, but it has great quality and great performance. Now, moving on to the 2 scents that I have in my collection that I've tried and that seem to feel the closest to the original one. The first one comes from Maison Alhambra, and it's called Kismet Angel. And up until I experienced the one that I'm going to show you the last, this seemed to have the closest opening to the original fragrance that I've tried out of all clones. You get, again, very similar scent profile to the original, almost identical. You get quite a strong boozy note in the opening. Again, those feels slightly less strong cognac note, but getting very close. On the dry down, maybe lacks a bit of the sweetness and the intensity of the original fragrance, and also the quality is not superb. But again, this is, still feels very similar. Nowadays, I think this has a different name. I'm not too sure exactly what it is, the name nowadays. And that leads me to the last fragrance that I'm going to feature in today's video. Again, from Fragrance World and French Avenue, and it's called Raw Blend, and it's a sister fragrance to Raw Blend Nero. And this is the one fragrance in my collection that, to my nose, smells most similar to the original fragrance, almost identical. You get a very strong cognac note in the opening, you get pretty much the same amount of sweetness as the original fragrance, you get superb performance, very strong fragrance, probably one of the strongest one featured in today's video, great projection, perfectly unisex, great presentation, and all that for a reasonable price. This costs somewhere between 35 to 40 euros. So this, to my nose, is the one that actually feels the closest to the original fragrance that I have tried and I have in my collection. And now, instead of final words, I'm going to give you a few quick rankings. First of all, I'm going to rank them based on the quality. For me, when it comes to quality, the best quality ones in here are Aris Intense, the 2 Raw Blends, also the OG Hamra, and Hamra Hawa as well, and these 2 from Paris Corner, Moch, Cognac Blaze, and Sharaf Blend. But these 4 here Paris Intense, the two raw blends, the two hammers actually feel to my nose as having the best quality out of all of them. When it comes to the quality of the scent. When it comes to performance, for me, the ranking will be something like this. The strongest fragrance in here, the longest lasting, the strongest projecting will be Raw Blend Nero. This is an absolute beast in my opinion. Then next it will be Raw Blend and Cognac and Aris Intense, and also the hammers along with the Zimaya share of the blend. These here are pretty much on par when it comes to performance, maybe slightly better from the Raw Blend, and Raw Blend Nero is again an absolute beast when it comes to the performance. And if I have to rank them based on my personal opinion, my personal liking, how I like them, for me it will be like this Raw Blend, the OG Raw Blend, because this is the closest one to the original fragrance. Then it will be Aris Intense along with Sharaf Blend and Hamra Hawa. Then it will be Raw Blend Nero. It's not a bad fragrance, it's just so intense and so sweet that it actually can be a little bit challenging for some people, hard to wear, and also Moch Cognac Blaze as well. So guys, in today's video I showed you and I compared 10 clones and alternatives of Kilian's Angels Share, a mega video. I hope that you found this video interesting to watch. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye. Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. It's time for your daily dose of some fragrance content, and it's also time for another episode of a mega fragrance battle. Today I'm going to compare a total of 7 clones of Parfums de Paris Layton. I'm going to tell you which is the best budget offering and which is my most favorite clone of Layton currently. Now, I did a similar video about 6 months ago, but since that time I've acquired a few more good Layton clones, and I just wanted to update my fragrance battle video, including those 2, to be more precise, new clones of Layton, because I think they deserve a spot on this video. Now I'm going to go over my Layton clones in the order of how much I've actually paid for them. Keep in mind that these are the prices around here. Your prices around the world may vary a little bit, but I'm going to start with the cheapest clone of Layton that I currently have, and I'm going to work my way up through the pricing ladder. And so let's start with the cheapest one, and that one comes from the brand of Zimaya, which is a sub-brand of Afnan, and the fragrance itself is called Royal Paragon. It's an interesting fragrance, comes interestingly packaged quite nicely, and price-wise this is the cheapest clone of Layton that I currently have. I paid around about 14 or 15 euros to get it, which makes it crazy inexpensive in my opinion. And it's actually done pretty nicely considering how cheap of a fragrance it is. It comes in a similar colored bottle as Layton itself. It has metallic cap. All around the quality is actually quite decent. And the scent itself is also very nice. Now to my nose this feels like just a slight twist, like actually all of them feel. Keep in mind that all 7 fragrances, in fact apart from one, so 6 out of the 7 are very similar to Layton, especially when you smell them in the air. And the only differences between Layton itself and all the clones that I find will be up close. Apart from the quality, of course, Layton has the best quality out of everything else that I'm going to talk about in today's video. But back on Royal Paragon from Zimaya, it's an interesting take on Layton that feels slightly less green, slightly less spicy, feels just having a little bit of stronger sweetness compared to Layton itself, like a slightly sweeter take on Layton. But the quality is actually very decent, and I've been quite impressed with Royal Paragon. It's a fragrance that I had to chase for a long time before I was finally able to get a bottle of it, and I'm really feeling satisfied with what I got in return. I've had this for a few months now, and especially after sitting for a few months, Royal Paragon has turned into a surprisingly good clone of Layton, again, especially considering how cheap of a fragrance it is. Now, the next one, price-wise, will be none other than the famous Detour Noir that comes from the brand of Al Haramain. Now, this is a very interesting scent. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the bottle design, I'm not a huge fan of the whole quality. It's a fragrance that's notorious for having bad bottle design and bad quality. You know, the lettering has peeled off on my bottle like basically a week after I got it, and a lot of other people are reporting the same thing. But again, it's not the most important thing in the world, because what is more important is the actual scent of Detour Noir. And this is another very nicely done clone of Layton. Now again, feels like a slight twist. This feels a little bit rougher around the edges compared to Layton, which is to be expected. Also, this feels slightly more green, like having a slightly more stronger menthol note compared to the original fragrance, and lacks a little bit of the sweetness of Layton itself. But again, I'm talking about very small differences, and those differences are noticeable only up close. In the air, this actually smells again very similar to Layton itself. Now, I forgot to talk about the performance of Raw Paragon, but Raw Paragon gives me about 7 to 7.5 hours of performance with moderate projection in the first about hour and a half. Detour Noir is slightly stronger, especially after some maceration. I get about 8 hours, maybe slightly over 8 hours, with a little bit stronger projection compared to Raw Paragon. So Detour Noir is a little bit more expensive, but at the same time offers a little bit better performance. Price-wise, in Europe at least, this tends to cost somewhere between 20 to 30 euros, making it a little bit more expensive compared to Raw Paragon. Now, the next clone that I'm going to include in this video is an interesting one. It comes from a brand called Zoha Aroma. These are guys that I think are based in Canada, and they have some original creations, but also they have some inspirations, and they have an inspiration of Layton, which is called Encrypt. Now, I have this tiny 15 milliliter bottle in here that I got for testing. In fact, it was sent to me for free about an year ago. But again, as usual, despite the fact that I've gotten this for free, it won't change my opinion on it, and I'm going to give you my honest opinion. And my honest opinion is that this is not really a good clone of Layton, unfortunately. I've had this for a while, and this feels like more like an inspiration rather than a straight up clone, like a distant inspiration. Definitely carries some of the Layton DNA, but this feels quite a bit different. It lacks the spiciness of Layton, it lacks the greenness of Layton, it lacks the woodiness of Layton, all around again just like a distant inspiration rather than something that can serve as a good replacement for Layton itself. This feels more airy, this feels lighter, slightly fresher, and also feels kind of soapy. It's like a soapy take on the Layton DNA. Quality in its own, it's not bad. Performance is also quite good, pretty much on par from what I get out of Detour Noir. But again, scent-wise, this is the furthest away from Layton itself, from everything else that I'm going to show you today. And now let's do a little bit of a price jump, because the next 4 fragrances that I'm going to show you are quite more expensive compared to the first 3 that I already talked about. The next one comes from the brand of Paris Corner and their North Star line of fragrances, and it's called Dew. And this is a very underrated clone of Layton, in my opinion. Again, feels like a slight twist compared to the original fragrance. This is a little bit different in the fact that this feels greener, it has a stronger geranium note, and feels a little bit more spicy compared to Layton itself. Lacks a bit of the sweetness of Layton, but in the air actually smells very similar to Layton. And again, those differences are only when you smell the scent up close. But other than that, this actually has a very good quality. Initially, when I first tried this one, when I first got it over 6 months ago, it felt a little bit too green and too spicy, too sharp. But with a bit of maceration, you know, the scent itself has settled really nicely. And nowadays, this has top-notch quality. Again, feeling a little bit different. Performance is great. Over 8 hours of performance. Also tends to be one of the better projecting fragrances featured today. Because of the slight sharpness and the slight greenness that it has, it projects better than pretty much everything else that I've shown up so far. Comes really luxuriously packaged and all around offers very good quality, and it's quite an impressive scent, and again probably the most underrated clone of Layton currently. Price wise, this when it was first launched, it was priced at about 45 euros, making it a little bit more expensive than your usual clone fragrances. But nowadays I've noticed that the prices have dropped a little bit, and now this costs around about the 40 euro mark, maybe even slightly less than 40 euros. So the next Layton clone featured in today's video, North Star Dew from Paris Corner. Continuing with the price increase, the next one that I'm going to show you is called Royal Blue, and it comes from the brand of Orientica, and this is my latest Layton clone purchase that I've done, and I just did a review of this fragrance last week, and this is a very impressive scent. It has a quite an unique looking bottle. The bottle size here is 80 milliliters. It's a little bit more expensive. I paid around about 60 euros for this one, making it quite a bit more expensive compared to Norstak Dew, but the quality here again is absolutely superb. Again, this feels like a slight twist compared to Layton itself. Feels like having a little bit more ambery sweetness on the dry down, lacking a little bit of the spiciness of Layton up top, and also feeling like it has a few citrusy notes in here that are a little bit different compared to Layton itself. But other than that, again, the quality is absolutely superb, and on the dry down, this makes it a little bit sweeter than Layton itself, and it's a really nice fragrance, quite an impressive scent, and a great find for me. Performance is pretty much on par with Layton. We're talking about over 8 hours of performance. Projection wise, again, on par with Layton. All around, and the quality itself just feels like designer quality level at this point. Really top-notch stuff from Orientica, and I've been really impressed by Royal Blue. So Royal Blue is the next Layton clone featured today. Continuing with the price increase, the next one comes again from the brand of Orientica, and it's called the Exclusive Oud Blue. Now this is a little bit more expensive than Royal Blue itself. I paid about 65 euros for that one, but also keep in mind that Exclusive Oud Blue comes in a 60 milliliter bottle size. You're getting 20 milliliters less juice compared to Royal Blue itself. But this again offers an absolutely fantastic quality. Maybe again feeling just a hint more spicy compared to Layton. But other than that, super close. And again, we're talking about absolutely fantastic quality with the Exclusive Oud Blue. And the best thing out of all is that this is the best performing fragrance featured today. This is a beastly performer that outlasts Layton, both when it comes to longevity and both when it comes to the projection as well. It's an absolute beast, and again, super impressive scent from Orientica. So the next one featured in today's video is called Exclusive Oud Blue from Orientica. And the last Layton clone that I'm going to include in today's video is called Dusk, and it comes from the Ouds collection, from the brand of Ouds collection. Now, at least in my case, this is the most expensive Layton clone that I have. I paid about 75 euros to get it. Slightly less than 75 euros, but this makes it the most expensive clone that I have. Again, we're talking about superb quality in here. You get magnetic cap, really nice presentation. In fact, all four of the more expensive clones come really luxuriously packaged, and the packaging and the bottle design and the whole quality, the hardware quality of all four of them is absolutely fantastic, on par with Layton itself. And this is like a slightly fruitier take on Layton itself, and also feels a little bit powdery compared to Layton. But again, scent-wise, the quality is top-notch here. Performance-wise, with Dusk, again, you're looking pretty much at the same performance like you'll get with Layton itself. Looking at about 89 hours of longevity, maybe slightly less projecting than Layton itself, but again, super nice quality, and all around a very impressive fragrance from the brand of the Ouds collection. So the last clone featured in today's fragrance battle is Dusk. And now, after I've gone through all 7 Layton clones featured today, let's talk about the rankings a little bit. First of all, let's talk about the cheapest offerings here, which are Royal Paragon and Detour Noir. Now, if you simply want to try the Layton DNA and you want to get something that's cheap but will get you close scent-wise, that has slightly less performance compared to the original fragrance, it doesn't really matter which one you choose, whether you go with Royal Paragon or where you go with Detour Noir. Both of them will give you an idea how Layton actually smells, will get you close to Layton, and will get you smelling really nice, to be honest. Now, if I have to choose one out of the two for the best, cheapest option of Layton clone, I will go with the Royal Paragon because I enjoy the scent a little bit more compared to Detour Noir. But at the same time, and it's also a little bit,
cheaper compared to Detour Noir. But at the same time, Detour Noir is a little bit better performer. So again, if you're looking for the cheapest possible option to go with the Layton clone, go with Raw Paragon. But if you want something that is very inexpensive but is at the same time has a better performance, then you can go with Detour Noir. And now moving on to the best options here, the 4 expensive options here. I'll tell you which one is my current most favorite Layton clone, and that's is going to be Raw Blue from Orientica. Now, up until I got this fragrance, my most favorite clone was Dusk, but nowadays Raw Blue has taken that crown. Keep in mind though that the difference in here, how much I like them, is very small. But Raw Blue has impressed me with its quality, has impressed me with its performance. I really like the bottle design. All around, currently this is my most favorite clone. But the reality is that no matter with which one you will actually go out of the 4, whether it will be North Star Dew, whether it will be Raw Blue, whether it will be Exclusive Wood Blue or the Dusk, you won't be disappointed because all 4 offer absolutely fantastic quality. If you want the best performing Layton clone currently, then go with Exclusive Wood Blue. If you want something that's a little bit less spicy, slightly sweeter compared to Layton itself, you can go with the Dusk or the Raw Blue from Orientica. But again, North Star Dew is a very underrated clone of Layton, and if you don't mind a little bit more greenness, a little bit more spiciness, then you can safely go with the Dew as well, because this one again offers absolutely fantastic quality and performance. And so guys, this was all for today's mega episode of a fragrance battle where I compared 7 clones of Parfums de Marlis Layton. I hope that you found this video interesting to watch, entertaining or useful. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.